Hey, Zaka family. Zaka is launching an exclusive membership platform to provide you with career development workshops, coaching, community, and so much more. Go to ZakaConnect.com and sign up to receive information on how to access early registration and perks. Hello, everybody. This is Paul Herman, the Prince of Motivation and host of Zaka Presents My Journey. We're creating this vulnerable and positive platform where you can get inspired and motivated from different leaders from our community. Today, our guest is Christina Ashford, who is the Assistant Director of Grants Accounting Finance at Kennesaw State and founder of Impactlytics. Christina, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, now the pleasure.
Hello.
Pleasure's all ours. Pleasure is all ours, Christina. I know there's a lot of things that we're going to be diving in today, and I greatly appreciate you just taking the time to just kind of share with our audience members about your journey. But before we actually get into your journey, if possible, you could just let our listeners know, tell us a little bit more about your cultural background and where you're from.
Absolutely. And also, thank you for having me. It's not every day you get asked to be interviewed or to share your story. So thank you for having me, and thank you to the whole team. But culturally, I am Haitian, first generation Haitian, and grew up in New York. And so that there's a very distinct difference, I think, when you grow up in a culture, but also within a community that is also very much, you see similar cultures around you and you're super immersed in that culture. So growing up in New York, I was able to go to a church that also had mass that was in Creole. And I still to this day don't speak Creole, but I understand it. So I'm fully just immersed in my culture. So I think there's a very big difference in that lifestyle. So I like to tell people that up front. I grew up in a very traditional household, mom, dad, sister. I had all four of my grandparents around growing up, a host of cousins and aunts and uncles, everyone. We were all together, and even folks who lived out of state, we traveled to go see them. So I was very ingrained in the culture. And so here's where that gets really interesting, because it's great and I loved it. But it was also interesting reconciling my Haitian culture and upbringing with going to school with non-Haitians and other cultures. So growing up, there was a lot of trying to process what I'm seeing at school and what I'm hearing from friends versus what I'm seeing at home and what I know to be real in my family. So I think it's really important to say that I appreciated how immersed I was in my culture, but I also had so many different moments of trying to navigate what it means to also be American, and going to school with other cultures and folks from different backgrounds who were allowed to do things that I was not allowed to do. When you're the oldest girl, there are things that come with that. And so my sister and I are 6 years apart. So there's a certain level of responsibility and
True.
All of the stereotypes you can think of that come with being an eldest child definitely played a part in my upbringing and just how I navigated the world. So outside of school and then moving away, being the first of all of my first cousins, right? We are all first generation and Haitian-Americans, and being the first girl to go away to school and not be near my family and being 4 hours away, and what that meant when I was in college. Just a lot of different pieces to what it means to have all of my upbringing, but also know that the culture of the world was changing, the culture of just being open and learning about different cultures. It was very interesting to have to play sort of always teetering a certain line of what applies and where, and how do I know what applies in this situation, finding your people, right? Still wanting to embrace my culture and honor it at the same time, with that, which was still really important to me, that it was honored, but also that I wanted to make sure, as a proud Haitian American, that I was still also trying to wrap my brain around what it meant to navigate just environments and spaces that maybe some of my family members didn't get to experience, right? So they didn't have the tools or the experience to show me or to tell me or to teach me. And so how do I, navigate that when I don't have those examples either? So yeah, I'll stop there for now.
And it's something that a lot of our guests have spoke about when they were on the show. Previous guests, they talk about the transition, that hard moment where they were living like two different lifestyles: the American lifestyle, but they're still staying true to like their culture, their heritage and stuff. Like, so like you said, like you would do things within the household, but then the American culture was telling you to do something a little bit different. And I know there's a lot of norms, and like you said, you're the oldest. There's a lot of things, leadership, responsibilities. A lot of the previous guests have mentioned about, you had to be a doctor, a lawyer. You had to kind of live up to some type of standard. Being that first generation. So I know it definitely is at times was pretty hard, but you definitely push through, and there's a lot of great things that have come through it. I know we're going to talk about like the university and the things you've been doing after that, but what were like some of the obstacles you dealt with as a child?
I think some of the things, and you're right, so much of that is so true. I think some of the obstacles that I personally dealt with were navigating or trying to sort of be cool, if that makes sense. Right? If my friends were able to hang out until 10 o'clock, but my curfew was 9 o'clock, or, lots of the I guess, again, stereotypical things, right? We weren't allowed to have boys call the house, or we weren't allowed to, wear certain things. And that necessarily wasn't what was in style. Or so those are like some of the very, I think any culture you go through some of those things. I think the more nuanced things that I would go through are, where there at a time it was really uncool to be Haitian at one point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And and politically speaking, right, we were in the news, and there's lots of bad or just lots of trash talk about Haitians in general, and when you're watching the news. But at the same time, I would go to school, and both of my best friends in high school were both Haitian, and first generation Haitians as well. I would again go to a church where I would sing songs in Creole. I would be singing hymns in Creole. So it was weird. That was like always something I think that didn't sit well with me, or obviously didn't sit well, but also just you have to marinate on some of those things, right? When you intrinsically know that obvious what you're hearing, the negative conversation and the negative talk that you're hearing, it's negative, but it still finds its way into your brain and into your thoughts, trying to push through what does that mean? How do people see me? You start reflecting on how do people look at you, and trying to do some of that searching of what it means for yourself. Sometimes doubt creeps in at the same time, right? Because you're trying to say, I see all of this beauty and culture that I love. I loved it. I loved all of it. But at the same time, then there's so much that is attacked about our culture, or attacked about our people. And what does that mean? And when you're of a certain age, most of us are not able to process that in a way that is either healthy or constructive, or even just intellectually, being able to sit with, some that people say crazy things, what have you. So I think that was definitely an obstacle as a child, just seeing these totally different viewpoints of how you can see people, or see a group of people in particular.
Mm-hmm. And during this whole time, like in your childhood, and as you got into your adulthood, like when did you know that your career path was going to revolve around like finance? Was it something that sparked it as a child? Did any of your family members, partake in the finance industry prior?
So no, but here is the funny thing. When you're a kid and you're told the thing to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, and you're like, I don't want to do any of those things. I was like, okay, well, what is another thing that I could do that I'm good at, but also would be, something that they would they would approve of, honestly. I am artsy by nature. I consider myself a creative. But that's definitely not something on the approved list as far as career paths go. But it was always interesting to me how artists support themselves or any sort of I would say career path where you're not like on a salary, or you have to do a gig here, a gig there to make ends meet. And I was just always curious about that. I'm also a nerd, and I'm a proud nerd, so it's okay.
Let's go. Come on, claim it.
Yeah, I'm a very proud nerd. My parents sent me to accounting camp. That does exist.
What?
I know. Yeah, I know.
Oh, wow. That's the first I've heard of that, an accounting camp.
Yeah, it was real special. And while I did not major in accounting, I kept finding my way back to accounting and finance in general. I am very proud to say that I've had a lot of influence as far as in the education world. So my grandfather on my mom's side was an educator for so long. And one of my uncles was also an educator. And I mean, their influence on me and just pushing me to just learn as much as I can. I mean, they were some of the biggest champions of my education, as far as, and just not even my education, but just like encouraging me to embrace how smart I was. And particularly when it came to like math and at the time, also sciences at the time. And so I knew that there had to be a way to figure out, how can I do something that I'm good at, and also is in the realm of something that I'm passionate about. And so knowing that the creative world that I really wanted to live in didn't necessarily, it would have been a different road and a different path, which when we talk later, when we get there later in the conversation, you'll see.
Okay.
I'm working my way back to the creative side.
Okay. We need
But
more creators in this world.
absolutely. But it turned out I said I wanted to be in the education world, but within finance. It's merging something that I know I'm good at. I can do numbers in my sleep. I mean, I do my food shopping in Excel. So,
Wow. We might have to dive into some of this. This camp must have got you there. Because I need to attend this camp. I need to go to attend this camp. You said you're doing your groceries on an Excel. Okay.
It makes me happy. Actually, it really does. But I'm super passionate about, supporting education for children and just people's development overall, right? And just empowering people to dive deeper into all of their intellect and making sure that they are pushing themselves. I never wanted to be in a classroom. I knew that was not the thing for me. But this sitting in the spot where I am now and where I've been in other places in my career, it's been this really great merging of this, finding something I know that I can do really well, and then being able to do it for a mission and mission driven work and wanting to have a certain impact. I could have done Wall Street or, something like that, but that wasn't going to do what I was trying to do. I knew that I wanted to make sure that it was somewhere in the realm of something I was passionate about. So if it wasn't in the art world, it was the next thing was education.
And I think that's a very important thing that you mentioned, like finding that passion in it. Like and if you don't, then it's just like it's like very mundane, but you got to find something that kind of like excites you to go to work every day or to want to do the work that you are signed up for. Sometimes it's just, some people might just pick a job just to pick a job, but if you're gonna start building your career, building your brand, building your whole business, you just got to find that true thing that really like inspires you to do what you do every day. And I know a lot of this inspiration and work that you're doing currently, a lot of it sometimes comes from like the educational background. And I know that you had spent some time at Georgetown University, a really, really amazing school to be at. Could you talk a little bit more about that educational journey over there?
Oh man, I loved my time at Georgetown. And I think Georgetown helped solidify a lot of things for me. One, yes, awesome school for its education, but also just I'm a huge proponent of college in general. There is no other time in life like being in college, specifically undergrad, and just living sort of like an adult in this adult bubble, trying to figure out your life. So I had an amazing time. I met my husband in undergrad, and he was also a finance major. We're a bunch of nerds over at our house.
Let's go.
But it was there. I thought that I wanted to be an accounting major. I did. I had all the intentions of being an accounting major and realized that's just not what I want to limit myself to. And so I switched to finance because it felt like it opened up to a broader world of finance and numbers and being able to use those skills in the future, right? Because again, part of where my desire for this came from was the curiosity of not just doing bookkeeping and that sort of thing and making sure, all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed, but also how people are able to understand budgeting and how are school systems, able to figure out how much do they need in their reserves versus what's their per pupil. And I've always been just fascinated about how people do the things that they do and like what is driving these decisions based on dollars. And so it felt like opening up moving from accounting to finance really helped me understand like I just don't want to look at the numbers and say, yep, this matches and this doesn't. And I know accountants do a lot more than that, but the analysis of it, yes, they definitely do that. But I want to get to a way that we are looking at numbers and that they tell a story. And that was
I'm with you on
really
that.
important to me. Yeah, like it was really important to me to understand how to tell that story. I mean, I took a visual basics class for fun, like as an elective, so that I could learn how to build different tools within Excel. I mean, it really was just something in accounting clicked and said, yep, this is not all you want to do, but I still had the foundations, right? Everyone, when you're a finance major, you still have to take the basic accounting. But when you dive into finance on the broader level, you get to do things where now you're getting the creative side out of me. Now I get to see how do I manipulate this and move this around? How do I shift this? How do I, when I loop in grants right later on in my life and sit there and say, how do I tell a sponsor and a funder a story based on these numbers such that they now feel the same way I feel and they want to be included. They want to support the cause. They're invested and they feel a connection. Those numbers help to tell that story. And so my fascination with the storytelling creative side of it helped me really say, this is what I want. I definitely want to be somewhere that allows me to do that. I didn't know where, but somewhere that allows me to play around and still, be have some sort of reign and autonomy to get creative while still doing all of the things that you have to do, still following all the gap rules and all of these other things and all of the very like specific rules you have to follow. Great, I can color in the lines and then tell me when I can go, because after that, that's what I want to get to. I want to get to outside of that. So.
And I like the way you're saying that, like finding a good way to make numbers be fun, right? I feel like it's, especially at an early age in school, like they don't, they try to make it fun, but then there's this time frame between, that younger early stage of learning about math and stuff like that, where it's just not fun at all. Right.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, numbers really have to make sense to you as an adulthood. Your credit score, what's in your bank, how you save, your reserve. Like now you really got to fall back in love with numbers. Right. And the story that it tells, like, okay, you know what? Over the many years, I've spent this amount of money. I should probably cut back on this. But like there's that time frame in between before that maybe that early adulthood stage where you just hate math. Well, not even you just dislike it because you're like, I just don't get it. There's a lot of us that is, even myself, I'm talking about myself as well, because I know that it was a time, even though I was in business school and, we had a lot of those classes with numbers, I was like, dreading it But now, as an entrepreneur, now in my adulthood, now I see where these numbers actually make sense, and I can see why some people, like you said, you do it in your sleep. It's not. It's not. It's like nothing right
Yeah.
there. So kudos
Yeah.
to you for falling in love with it at an earliest start in your life. And I know that like after college, like what was like that first job after college? Like what was the career that started you off? Like what was like one of the biggest things, in a sense, what one of the biggest things you weren't prepared for?
So I will say I did not directly jump into something that was exactly related. I took this path, and I know to probably some folks shock, right? It wasn't, again, doctor, lawyer, engineer was out the window, but I didn't go directly into a financial role either. I knew, again, that I wanted to figure out and work in a space that I was going to feel like I was doing also good work. And there was an opportunity for a position in HR at DC Public Schools. And I took it because I knew that it was education. So for me, it was like, oh, of course, that's where I would go. And for some reason in my mind, I don't know how 22-year-old me knew to do this, but I'm so grateful for it that I worked in HR for 3 years and almost 3 years. And I got to learn so much about what it means to run a school district and to be a part of the central office team for a large school district. DC at one point was one of the fastest growing urban school districts in the country. And so getting exposed to all of those things, I just knew I'll figure it out from there. Something will happen, something will click. And that is literally what happened. So I will pause right there and say for everyone that sometimes you just have to take a chance. And I mean that with, you have to be smart too, right? Don't just throw caution to the wind. But then there's also time to take a chance that could potentially turn into something else. I had a fabulous, wonderful, wonderful first supervisor. And I mean, from day one, she allowed me to craft my position into and do projects that I was passionate about, or some stuff that I just wanted to try and see how it would work. I got to do so many different things in that role, just being an assistant and learning. I mean, I can't tell you how important it was that I got to learn, but also at the same time, I was fortunate again that I was provided space to go after different projects, to put things together. Within maybe my first 3 months, I had already started working on a project to build a system. And I mean that, literally build a system. I don't code, but I was learning to build a system
Yes.
so that we could track the issues that that our employees were calling in, and their concerns, so that we could track them. We knew how to follow up, and we had some foundation of a system, but I had never done that before, and it helped me just learn how much I love building and crafting from the beginning. I didn't love that particular system, but I loved that I got to start from scratch. And I learned that I liked to be able to say, okay, I can play around with things and then I can see it in real time. And walking through the office and having the phones ring and the team answering the phones and then going into the system that I built to use it. It's working. We're pulling reports out of it. And it was amazing for me. So I knew that, yeah, do I want to be in this role and on this particular team forever? No, but I knew what it meant for, here are things that I am, something else that I'm good at. It's a transferable skill. I can use this to say and talk about
Very
how
important.
transferable skills are so critical. It really helps build my resume as far as I can apply this in a way that is finance. And eventually that's exactly what I did. I moved within DC Public Schools and eventually became the director of grant administration. It was merging, I know and understand how our schools are working. I learned and understood who our biggest sponsors were and where most of our funding was coming from, our special funding, right, our grants versus our local dollars. And I learned all about who the most important stakeholders were. So I put all of that together, all the things that I had learned over those years, and was able to say, here is also this area that I'm really good at, and I can apply all of this information that I learned into developing this team. And yes, you need someone that's going to give you that opportunity. It's always, always difficult. I do not have the magic answer for how do you get experience or how do you get someone to hire you when you don't have experience. You got to get experience to be able to say you have it. I don't have the magic answer for that other than networking and building your community, because the next person that pulled me up and brought me over to the grants world literally looked at me and looked at my resume and said, and word for word, she said, "You're good at Excel. Why didn't you tell me this sooner?" And that was the end of the conversation. And I was hired and I was promoted again and again. And I mean, between 2009, when I first started at my first job, and 2017, I was promoted 1, 2, 3, 4 times.
Okay.
And it was purely off of, I positioned myself to where I wanted to take on different responsibilities. So there's this part to it where you've got to still have this thing. And whenever my dad ends up listening to the podcast, he will be very proud that I'm going to use his phrase.
Let's go. Come on. We got to quote dad right now. We got to quote dad.
You got to have the immigrant hunger always. I may be first generation, but it lives in me. Like I fully believe that. I fully believe in, opportunities don't necessarily just come to you. You got to work for it. You got to go after it. You have to position yourself always for the next thing. People can tell you no all day long, but you've got to position yourself for the first time or for that very next time when someone says yes, that you're ready for it. And I fully believe that at the time, I was young and just wanted to move up and wanted to grow, honestly. Again, there was always an end goal. I knew that I didn't want to stay exactly where I had started. But I knew that somehow it was going to all be for the greater good. And so, I thoroughly enjoyed the almost 8 years that I was there. And it was probably one of the best decisions that I ever made, was just saying, I will just try it. And I will move
I
from
like
there.
that. I like that. I like what you said about your father. Shout out to Pops right there on that quote. Got to give him a shout out.
Absolutely.
And it's the fact of you saying like you had to try it and the transferable skills. I think those are transferable skills are very, very essential in the world of today. That's and obviously building your network, which is something that you highlighted right there, which is very important. You might not have the skill set at the present moment, but building your network, trying new things, and utilizing those transferable skills that you have could potentially help you get promoted, help you get the job, things of that nature. So you definitely you had a lot of things going on, but you were able to juggle all that. And kudos with the promotions, because that's not normal right there. You lucky if you get one at the end of the year, and a little bonus or something, and a little holiday party or something. But you were
Right.
really slaying away. They were like, and the thing is that they couldn't deny you. That's the thing right there. Your work ethic goes to show, and your drive that you have. They're like, you know what? We can't deny the fact that this individual right here is putting in the time. We need to acknowledge them and give them what they need, or they're gonna leave. And
Yeah.
as you could see, you definitely were a big asset. I mean, when you with your current role, right? Could you talk to us a little bit more about what is your typical day at the office?
Typical day. So where I am right now is a university that is growing tremendously, both in our actual enrollment and in our research. And so we are literally getting new grants and new funding every day. In a typical week, I probably see maybe 5 to 7 new grant awards coming through. So it's crazy busy, because of the expansion and how much we are pushing faculty with their research and wanting to find new ways to support students on campus and provide opportunities for students on campus. So for me, a typical day is probably looking at transactions for the nonprofit side of the university. So I do work for both the nonprofit side and the actual university. And so looking to make sure our financial system, all of our transactions are in approving those transactions. So whether it's new expenses or bills that we need to pay, looking at outstanding bills, or I should say outstanding invoices from sponsors who said they were going to fund us. That's usually how I start my day.
Mhm.
After that, I typically transition into, are there any fires? And fires could look like, hey, we've got a sponsor that said, we didn't submit a financial report and they need that. Otherwise, we can't get our next round of funding. Or it could look like, hey, we've got a new grant and we set it up as a local grant, but it's actually a federal flow through grant and we need to fix it ASAP because we need to bill them, so on and so forth. So I'll go to my fires and see, okay, what has to get taken care of today, and how quickly can I do it? Can I do it by myself? Do I need to pull somebody from the team to help me? Do I have all the information that I need, or is there more research that I have to do before even determining the, state of the fire?
Mhm.
Depending on how the fires are that day, will
Ooh,
tell
that's
me.
true. That's
That'll
true.
tell me whether I can move on to just doing research in general. So for me, that is looking at, hey, did we miss something last month? How is our reconciliations trending? What does my accounts receivable look like right now? Looking at our bank account, and is my cash flow okay? And I'll do some pretty standard things that just taking a look around and trying to take like an inventory of where are we, what's going on, getting, a feel. At any point in time, I want to be able to say or be able to answer if someone asks, hey, what's going on with this? Where are we with these numbers? I want to always be able to say, I know at least a little something. And if I don't, that's okay too. But at least a little something, enough that I'll say, here's what's going on, but I'll follow up with some more details in a little bit. So I try to stay abreast of what's happening on the regular operational sort of day-to-day things. But I have a great team, and so for me, if if there is something that I should be aware of, it will get to me before I go looking for it. So it gets to me very, very quickly.
I mean, look, you got a lot of promotions, so they're going to drop it on your desk real quick.
Yeah, it definitely gets to me. I mean, last week it was Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and I worked from home and thought it was going to be a quiet day, and it was for the most part. And at maybe 1:30, I got a call that said, hey, so-and-so's out of the office, which of course, because it's the day before Thanksgiving. So can you figure out whether this should be approved or not? I had never done it. I didn't even really know why we would need an approval. So that it just needed to happen, and we figured it out. It was fine. It didn't take a ton of time, but I've always said, I think part of my role, and just my role as not assistant director, grants, accounting, blah, 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 the title, but my role as how I fit into any organization, I try to be a glue. I try to be a person that can dabble in a lot of areas within my wheelhouse. I try to make sure that I can speak the financial lingo and accounting lingo, but also programmatic lingo, and make sure that I can translate for those different groups, because it always seems like when you're really, really good at like finance and accounting, most people are not also creatives or even sometimes great at explaining those things in non-financial terms. And because of just my experience and my passion and just who I am, I always feel like I sit in the middle. I'm not extremely on the super accountant side. I don't have a CPA or anything like that. But I can do and hang for quite some time and hold my own in that space. But I can also be able to talk and speak program and talk about the operations side, and what does it mean to run and administer a grant, and what is a sponsor looking for, and have that and be able to have a conversation, because the finance grant world is just as much about relationships as any other industry. Totally about the relationships that we build. And so being able to sit and be able to do both has been such a really clutch and just useful skill for my career and the relationships that I've built. Being able to say, I can explain this to a dean or a principal investigator in a way that they'll understand it. And then I can turn around and go sit with the folks in general ledger and all of the really, really smart accounting people and explain it to them as well. And everybody's happy. And for me, that's been probably the best part of my career, is being able to knowing that I can do that, and that people have trusted me with that because of how well I've been able to do that over the years. So I've built up this trust of here's how you can do it. If anybody can explain it, she can explain it. And I can talk to both people and get both sides to be okay. And so, yeah, typical days are all over the place. But there's some fundamental things that I'll do. And then of course I speak to principal investigators. Those are the folks that are doing the research and helping them. I will do reporting. All the financial reporting comes through my team. And so a lot of that is also like, yes, this is what the numbers say, but here's what they mean.
That's true,
again,
true.
back to the translation.
Yeah.
So a lot of what I will do is try to make people understand the numbers as opposed to just seeing the numbers. It's academia. This is a research to university. There are a lot of smart people. They can do math, right? They can say, you take your grant amount and here are your expenses. That's what you got left. Absolutely. But what does it mean, and what's the impact, and where are we as far as progress, and how do we tell that story back to our sponsors? That's an entirely different skill and ability to have. So,
you see, and the thing is that right now, with all the things you got going on, I mean, you got a busy day. You know what I'm saying? But I know that a lot of the past interviewers have talked about, like, obviously that hustle, that grind, right? That something that your father was kind of talking about as well too. But obviously the 9 to 5 is there. But could you tell us a little bit more about like your company and the behind the scenes of what you've been working on?
Oh yes, that's my baby. Impactlytics is my baby. But again, it's just me being myself, honestly. I've done a lot of things, and I think the best hustles or passion projects or side hustles, whatever you want to call it, are things that are just truly true to yourself. So my Impactlytics does a lot of what I was just describing. It's helping people understand their numbers, right? Whether it's bookkeeping services for small businesses, whether it's grant writing and actually writing the grants, like writing proposals or administering the award, right? You've got a grant now and you need somebody to help you manage it or file, all the reports and all the different documents that you're supposed to keep up with for compliance. I'll do that as well. But it's also saying like, hey, I took a look at how you're spending, and if you're a nonprofit and you are a nonprofit that your goal and mission is to support children 5 to 12, I'm completely making this up, 5 to 12 with reading, etc., but you're spending most of your money on not books or not consultants to come in and help figure out literacy. You're doing your money is going to all of these other things, right? And a part of my company's belief is I stand on the fact that your budget and your spending is what really tells the story of who you are as an organization. And how do you go about these different areas, whether it's mission-driven work or not, but want to also claim other things. And so making sure that folks are tying what they're selling with their dollars, right? Here's what you are saying your company is about. Well, let's make it about that. People throw around the words about transparency and all of those different things, and there's a reason why organizations started coming out with these very fancy and beautiful looking programs that tell you, here's what we did throughout the last year. Here's our financial statement. Here's this, here's that. And because people want to know the story, right? You, just like you work differently and operate differently with a coworker that you like and get along with than someone you didn't. It's the same thing for businesses and organizations, right? You would feel more inclined to work with someone or to go into business with someone to support that business and spend your dollars with them if you understand them, if you are also invested in the story of what they are trying to do. And I like telling stories without writing. I love numbers. So, that it's like, again, it is the perfect blend of let's tell this story through numbers, and again, merging some of those other passions of mine. This is where the creative side comes out. I like building websites and brand kits and all of those things as well. So, okay, we've got your story, we've got the numbers. All right, now let's make it look pretty. Let's have it look in a way that you are proud of, that you feel like is representative of your organization. And so Impactlytics tries to cover all of those bases. If you are looking for a way to change the image that you have and revise your story, I am so thrilled to work from that space. I mean, I love getting in there. Oh, yep, you said this. Great. This lines up. This doesn't. Let's work on this. Let's do that. I will help you tell that story through your numbers and then through the materials, through the visual materials as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, with you talk about this creative side and you talk about the numbers side. It seems like you have a lot of great, hidden talents, if anything, superpowers. What are like as a Haitian-American and also like as a Black woman, and what are like two superpowers that you bring into your career, that help you out in your everyday?
I think one of them is being able to multitask is the word, but it's also, I think you mentioned before how other folks have said, living sort of like in two different worlds. It's almost like if you're, want to get sort of philosophical, like W.E.B. Du Bois and the veil and double consciousness and all of that stuff. It's similar in that, you could look at that and look at it negatively. You can. There are some negative connotations there, but you could also, how I view it, it's a superpower in that I know how to navigate in so many different environments. I have a ability that, allows me to read the room and say, okay, here is what this is what this client is looking for versus another client. Here is, how I need to present my findings and my research to someone so that they'll be more receptive to it. Not, I think some people will take that out of context, or you can take it further, and it's not about like changing yourself, it's understanding how to do all of those things within the realm of who you are. And I'll tell you, I'm all over the place. I have so many different like ideas and thoughts and just all the things that I want to do. And one of my favorite quotes growing up was, oh gosh, it was, do I contradict myself? Very well then, I contradict myself. I'm large. I contain multitudes. And for me, it was about embracing the multitudes that live within me and not wanting to make it seem like I have to choose any one of them. Being Haitian-American, it was Haitian and American. It's Black woman. It's all of the multifaceted sides. When you embrace that and live in that space, it is a superpower unlike any other because it's such a uniqueness about it, right? I think when we try to only identify with one area of our lives, we miss out on so many other thoughts and ideas. And for me, that's been one of the greatest superpowers, is knowing that it's okay to embrace all of who I am and use that and use all of my different experiences in order to understand people and build relationships and understand what it is folks are looking for and what they need at the same time.
And I love the fact that with your superpowers, you're going to bring people together.
For sure.
You're going to bring communities together. And I think that's some people might have like an internal type of superpower where it's like it benefits them, but you're like mine's is like external. I need to kind of bring people with me, bring people up. That's a part of that your culture. It's a part of your tradition, your heritage, and it's definitely essential in this world of today. And I want to kind of brings me to my next question for you is like what is like your perception or your thoughts on like financing and education and like the underrepresented communities? Like how do we get those communities to get the resources and tools and have individuals like yourself, who are very knowledgeable and love what they do when it comes to numbers, right? To get them on that same playing page.
Yeah, I love this question. By the way, I thought it was so thoughtful, and I had to really sit for a second and be like, "Wow, wait, that is a great like way to say or to articulate it." I think for me, one of the things that I think I'm able to see from my viewpoint is just how much we're unaware of what's out there. And when I see students on campus and who are looking for opportunities, or I had a student assistant within our office who was amazing and fabulous and was a accounting major at the time, which made sense for her being on our team. And through it realized it wasn't for her at all. But she flipped it around and was able to say, but you know what I really want to do? I want to make sure that I'm talking to my friends about my experience. And there's just so much that we don't know. And I think I was so fortunate in that I had so many educators around me. I had, again, such a large family of folks who all went to college, who a lot of them went to graduate school as well. Just really smart people that were able to push me. There's so many people that don't have that. And where I sit, I get to use my vantage point to say, okay, here are ways that I can help bring those people together or bring those people to a place where they're at least exposed to this kind of information or know what to do. So, for example, I wrote a grant years ago, and the school principal was awesome, and also super frustrated with just being able to do some of the basic educational things that principals need to be able to do. And one of the things that he was struggling with, he shared, was about students can't focus when they are not fed or unclean. And it was so random that to me in my mind, or it struck out, no, not random, but it struck out in my mind when he said unclean. And we ended up in this conversation, and he's like, it's great that we have these resources for books and for all, new headphones and laptops and stuff. But we ended up coming up with this idea, why don't we write a grant for washing machines and dryers? Because the community that school was in, so many of the kids, were coming to school disheveled. And, we all went to school, how hard it is, and how hard kids can be on each other. Right.
Yes,
And so
yes.
if you're in a space where you are being either made fun of or looked at funny, or you just don't feel great about yourself, right? Like, it's hard to do so many other things, or anything else for that matter, especially when you're young. And I'll tell you, this is one of the one of the things that I'm most proud of is we went after it and said, why not? It wasn't something that was traditionally done. And it didn't mean that we couldn't do it or that it was hard to do. But sometimes, again, when you're in certain positions, you're constantly doing the same work over and over. And this was something that I felt like, again, was allowing me to be creative, allowing me to think outside the box, allowing the team to come together and fill a need in a way that we all knew how to use our skills the best. I can't run a school building, but I sure can help you write this grant for these washers and dryers. Absolutely. And so I like being able to find ways to do that in the community, and helping folks just understand what it means, or just the breadth of finance. Again, I should say, my team and I are going to do like budgeting 101, and we're just volunteering to do that with some of the undergrad students. And part of that is, right, a way for us to, when you work in finance and accounting, you're not, on campus a lot or in front of student facing. So it's a way for us to become student facing, but also a way for us to help them on their journey of understanding what it means to transition into adulthood and all of those things we talked about earlier. So I am passionate about finding ways to do that. I will say that they don't necessarily jump out, right? They're not just like, hey, come help here. Hey, come here. It is definitely a labor of love to figure out how can I take what I'm doing and where I sit and get into the community, sometimes it's not the students, sometimes it's the parents that need certain conversations about what it means to support their students.
That is true.
So it varies, but it's those areas they're not just readily accessible. We've got to create them. And so when we talk about this intersection, that for me, I thought that's the perfect word, because it doesn't always exist. You have to create it if you want to see it. If you want to, if I really want to honor what I discovered in undergrad for myself and honor 19-year-old me and and what I thought was going to be my mission and what I thought was going to drive me, then I need to keep making sure that no matter where I am or what position I sit in, that I find ways to add to the community, to bring those opportunities, to provide whatever knowledge I have, to, support them in any, or whoever, in any way that makes sense, that is feasible. Figure it out. We can craft it. I can come up with a lot of ideas. So, I think it's a great way to say the intersection of all of my work, all of my passions. It's something that I have to push always and go after with that same intentionality that I do with my 9 to 5.
And juggling all of this, like, what is like one of the proudest achievements in your career so far?
Other than that story, and so I don't know if maybe I didn't say it out loud. We applied and we did get those washing machines and dryers.
Okay,
so
okay.
We did.
You kind of left us on a little cliffhanger right there.
Yeah, I was like, wait, sorry.
I was like, that's a really nice thing right there. But I was like, I don't know if it worked out. Hopefully it did. But I'm glad you let us know. I mean, and to think about a grant for some washing machines, like something so small to some people is so massive to the next.
Exactly.
Right. So congratulations on that. Wow, that's big. How many washing machines were put in?
We got 5 washing machines and 5 dryers. And
let's go.
We're not talking, that's not even $10,000, right? Not even if you're talking dollar amount, right? We didn't get the money and then go buy it. We applied and we got washing machines and dryers, but the impact of that was huge. The impact of that, I mean, again, and like I said, this is definitely one of my proudest moments, is just being able to know that somewhere some kid is able to go and wash their clothes and show up fresh.
That's right.
Like, that's it. They're able to show up fresh. They're able to show up. They're able to show up. How about that? How about I'm sure that there are some of them that were like, I'm ditching school today because I know I didn't, I don't have whatever, like just that alone it's such a joy to be able to know that all I had to do was help write. We didn't have to go and campaign. We didn't have to
go to the store to go pick it up. You ain't have to physically pick up the washer and dry it, put it on your back. You didn't have to install it. Like everything in the grant covered all of that.
It covered it. And it's such I will say one of the questions I thought asked something about, or just elaborate a little bit on like grants. And so that's definitely one of the areas that I will say grants are special because, everything is so political and not just political, has a legal side to it. So when you have certain funding, whether it's local dollar, state, federal, what have you, there's so many regulations attached to it. Grant money allows you a different level of autonomy. And so being able to utilize sponsors in ways that say, here is the gap that we have. Are you able to help us fill this gap? Local dollars, federal dollars got us this far. Here's where we need to go. And that is why I think I have stayed in grants for so long, because I see them as a creative resource. It's not just regular money. It's a way to say like, help me figure out this solution, this unique solution to this unique problem, especially now where I am with the university and research. That's what all of our researchers are doing, right? They're like, I've got this theory. can you help fund me doing and looking into this? And here, I'll come up with some, I'll let you know what I find. Kennesaw has come up with, I don't know the number anymore, but I mean, we actually have patents based on some of the research that our university has come up with and done, so grant money is so special because you can literally apply and asked to do anything. And if someone
That is
is
true.
ready to say, hey, yeah, I'll do that, I'll fund that, I'll support that, it's game changing. It's such a game changer. So
No,
yeah.
it's one of the last interviews I did have. The individual had mentioned that you at the end of the day, there's so much money out there that will help fund, you as a business owner. You just have to go out there and find it. And then obviously you got to use your network. Obviously you got to go through the hoops to make it all happen. But, you have to have patience. You have a really good team, a really good grant writer, but there is money out there. And I'm glad that you have kind of like taken an interest into that, because sometimes that stuff gets real tedious and people just say, you know what, I'll just do it the other way. So I'm glad that, we have somebody on that side of the fence that understands it, and also has an appreciation for it and knows what it truly can do. It could really change the lives of so many people. Like you said, 5 washers, 5 dryers. The amount of students that are probably utilizing that currently to this day, is impactful. So the work that you do, whether just be getting a pen and writing down on a piece of paper what this grant is going to be for, it just turns into something so magical. And it leads me to my last question for you. You shared a lot of great gems and expressed a lot about your journey and your story. And something that I'm really, really catching is your drive to really help people, right? You help out your community. I think that's a very, humble thing, when someone's like, you know what, I'm still doing me, I'm doing this, but I'm still going to help out the people around me. As an immigrant leader, like what advice would you give to a young professional aspiring to make a meaningful impact like yourself in a respectable field, especially within the immigrant community?
I think the first thing I would say to someone is, I think it would be, don't be afraid to help other people, right? It's definitely a theme for me, as you said. Yes, you picked up on. I'm a big believer in collective and the community as a whole, but I think there's 2 things. There is something shifts when you help someone. And I say that first as opposed to my second thing, which is don't be afraid to ask for help. I say that first, don't be afraid to help, because when you help someone, it does something in the long run that you just won't know the full impact of what you're doing. And it's not just for yourself. Okay, well, sorry, let me say it like this. I'm a Christian. I love me some Jesus. And so, the Bible says, where you sow, there also you shall reap. And it's that sort of mindset and mentality. You never know what's going to happen by helping someone. You never know what seed is planted. You never know what is going to come of that future relationship. Helping someone is relationship building in and of itself. And so to me, in order to do and check off some of these boxes, right, that we mentioned, and not in a way that's just, just to check them off, but to make sure we're hitting all of these different areas. When you talk about relationship building, helping someone absolutely does that. Relationship building is obviously key to building your network. And I've read and heard someone say, a lot of the times when people think about building your network, you're thinking of people who are already in positions you want to be in. But forget that building your network also means building with the people that are currently where you are, because one day they will be somewhere where they can help you, they can reach out to you. People want to generally work with people they know and they like and they trust. So building with people who are on your same level is so key to building your network. And I know so many people who reached out to someone for a job just because, they remember them from their grad school, their class, and, they know what they're doing and what they're into, and wanted to see if they were open to a new opportunity, right? So when you help someone, you're doing all of these things, building your community, building your network, you're supporting someone else. It's a good thing to do, but also, when you do that, it also lets people see who you are, right? You don't go around helping someone begrudgingly, right? Or just,
True.
With a sour face or what have you. Hopefully that's not what you're doing. So it's a way to connect. And if nothing else, connecting with other people is really all life is about, right? Is all about how can we, in my perspective anyway, because I like to think I'm trying to create euphoria here, but we're trying to build. If you're only building for yourself, I mean, what good is that going to do? And so that's my first piece of advice. My second is, again, don't be afraid to ask for help. I don't know what
That's
it is
true.
about our cultures, immigrants in particular, where sometimes we have this mentality of you have to be at a certain level before you can ask people to help you with certain things. And it's just so far from the truth. And it really can take you so far away from what you could have worked on or had, or it's asking for help is such a good thing. It shows that you can be vulnerable. It shows that you are self-aware and that you know what you need, you know what you are capable of and what you maybe aren't capable of or don't have the capacity to do. And it's such an undervalued skill. And I mean that it's a skill because people, even when you want to ask for help, a lot of times people don't know how to. So don't be afraid to ask for help in whatever aspect, whatever situation. You never know what someone has up their sleeve, and what they are able to provide you with. So,
Well, shout out to you and shout out to them gems you got right there. Christina, I thank you so much for just taking the time out to just be here with us and share with us about your journey, your culture, your passion, and your impact on your community. Whether it's small or large. I'm definitely and very inspired by the whole washing machine and dryer story that you shared with us this evening. You know, Again, something so small could be something so big and so impactful to a larger community. So kudos to you. Congratulations on all the work you've been doing within your company and also within your own business. Again, shout out to Pops as well. And shout out to moms as well. But Pops with that line right there got us all going. So I just want to let the listeners know, if you want to hear more inspirational stories like Christina, please check us out on ZakaConnect.com. Follow our social at Zaka Connect and follow our feed, Zaka, wherever you listen to your podcasts.